The Art Director's Debrief, Wuthering Heights Deconstructed, The Fall of the House of Earnshaw. Hello, and welcome back to the Emotive Archive. We left our characters at the epicenter of a profound tragedy. Catherine Earnshaw, the wild heart of the moors, is dead. Her passing is not a quiet end, but the collapse of the central pillar that held this fragile, violent world together. In the long and brutal chapter we will deconstruct today, Chapter 17, we will witness the immediate, chaotic, and bloody aftermath of this collapse. This is a study in two kinds of grief, two kinds of hell. We will contrast the civilized sorrow of Threscross Grange with the savage anarchy of Wuthering Heights. And through the terrified eyes of Isabella Linton, we will get a first-hand account of Heathcliff's transformation from a tormented lover into a true demonic tyrant. This is the anatomy of a fall, the story of the complete and utter collapse of the House of Earnshaw. The chapter opens at Threscross Grange, a house now shrouded in a quiet, dignified sorrow. Edgar Linton's grief is profound, but it is civilized. He mourns his wife with a deep internal agony, finding solace in the newborn child she has left behind, the second Catherine. This small, fragile life represents a flicker of hope, a continuation of a lineage, a reason for him to endure. The atmosphere at the Grange is one of tragic, respectable mourning. It is a world governed by order, even in the face of unbearable loss. This quiet, controlled grief serves as a crucial point of contrast for the storm that is about to break at Wuthering Heights. The narrative then shifts, and Nellie Dean's attention is drawn to the heights by the sudden, dramatic appearance of Isabella Linton. Isabella, who had eloped with Heathcliff, believing herself to be the heroine of a romance, returns a broken woman. She is not a romantic figure, she is a refugee, a survivor escaping a war zone. Her physical state is a testament to the horrors she has endured. Her fine dress is torn and muddy. She is pale and wounded. Her expression is of frantic resolution. She has escaped from a literal hell on earth. Her narrative, which she recounts to Nellie, is the centerpiece of this chapter. It is a deposition, a first-hand testimony of the monstrous nature of Heathcliff's domestic tyranny. Through Isabella's eyes, we are taken back to Wuthering Heights in the hours after Catherine's death. The scene she describes is one of pure Gothic horror. Hindley Earnshaw, Catherine's brother, is in a state of drunken, murderous despair. He is not just mourning his sister, he is angry by his own ruined life, a ruin he blames entirely on Heathcliff. He sees Catherine's death as his final opportunity for revenge. He plans to bolt the door and kill Heathcliff when he returns. The house is no longer a home. It has become a trap, a stage for a final bloody confrontation. Isabella, trapped between these two savage men, is a terrified spectator. The confrontation between Hindley and Heathcliff is a scene of brutal, primal violence. It is not a duel of honor, it is a brawl, a desperate, animalistic struggle for dominance. Hindley's attempt to shoot Heathcliff, his use of a pistol with a blade attached, is the act of a desperate, cowardly man. Heathcliff, in turn, reacts with a strength and fury that is almost supernatural. He disarms Hindley and proceeds to beat him with a severity that horrifies Isabella. This fight is more than just a fight, it is a coup d'état. It is the moment Heathcliff, the outsider, the degraded servant, finally and violently seizes complete control of Wuthering Heights. Hindley, the legitimate master, is now a broken, pathetic creature, a prisoner in his own home. Isabella's testimony reveals the depth of Heathcliff's psychological cruelty. His grief for Catherine does not soften him, it hardens him into something monstrous. He does not mourn with tears, but with a cold, terrifying rage directed at the entire world. His treatment of Isabella is a calculated campaign of psychological torture. He tells her that Catherine's death is her brother Edgar's fault and that he will find a way to make him suffer. He openly declares his contempt and hatred for Isabella herself, his wife. Her escape is not just a flight from physical danger, but from a state of unbearable psychological torment. Her final act of defiance, telling Hindley that Heathcliff is in despair, is a small but significant act of revenge, a final desperate attempt to wound the man who has destroyed her. The chapter concludes with two final grim events. Isabella escapes to London, where she will give birth to Heathcliff's son, Linton, and then die. And a few months later, Hindley Earnshaw drinks himself to death. The old master is gone. His son, Hareton, is now an orphan, dispossessed of his own inheritance. And Heathcliff, the dark, mysterious boy who was brought to the Heights as a charity case, is now his undisputed master. The fall of the House of Earnshaw is complete. The first-generation story is over, a tale of sound and fury, ending in death and ruin. But the seeds of the next tragedy have already been sown. The newborn Catherine at the Grange and the young Hareton at the Heights are now pawns in the final, terrible endgame of Heathcliff's revenge. Now that we have anatomized the chaotic and brutal events of Chapter 17, let us elevate our analysis and view this section through a more radical political lens. The traditional reading sees this chapter as a story of domestic violence and personal tragedy. But what if we were to deconstruct it as a political allegory? I will now argue that this chapter is a brilliant, terrifying depiction of a failed state and a violent coup d'etat. Wuthering Heights is not just a house, it is a kingdom in collapse. And Heathcliff is not just an abuser, he is a brutal warlord, a usurper who seizes power in the ensuing chaos. Let us first analyze Wuthering Heights as a failed state. Under the rule of Hindley Earnshaw, the house has descended into anarchy. Hindley is the weak, decadent, and illegitimate ruler. His authority is not based on justice or strength, but on the tyranny of his moods and the haze of his alcoholism. The house is a reflection of his own internal decay. It is a place of chaos, where the servants are neglected, the air is abused, and violence is the only form of communication. There is no law, no order, only the whim of a drunken tyrant. This is a classic portrait of a regime in its final death throes. The social contract has been broken. The master of the house no longer provides security or stability, only danger and despair. Into this power vacuum steps Heathcliff. He is the outsider, the revolutionary, the man who has been oppressed by the current regime and has been waiting for his moment to strike. Catherine's death is the catalyst, the event that destabilizes the state and creates the opportunity for a coup. The confrontation between Hindley and Heathcliff is not just a fight between two men. It is a violent struggle for sovereignty. Hindley, with his bladed pistol, represents the desperate last-ditch effort of a dying regime to hold on to power. His methods are cowardly and illegitimate. Heathcliff, with his superior strength and cold, focused rage, represents the rising, brutal force that will overthrow the old order. His victory is swift and absolute. He does not just defeat Hindley, he humiliates him, beats him into submission, and establishes himself as the new, undisputed ruler of Wuthering Heights. Isabella Linton, in this political reading, is not just an abused wife. She is a political refugee, a defector from a brutal regime. Her harrowing narrative to Nellie Dean is not just a personal story. It is a political testimony, an eyewitness account of the horrors of the New Order. Her escape is an act of political asylum, a flight to the safety of the more stable, civilized state of Thrushcross Grange. Her final act of defiance, turning Hindley and Heathcliff against each other, is a classic tactic of a weaker party in a political conflict, sowing dissent among the enemy. The death of Hindley is the final pathetic end of the old regime, and what follows is the consolidation of the new one. Heathcliff does not just take over the house, he takes over the future. By becoming the guardian of Harrowing Earnshaw, the legitimate heir, he seizes control of the next generation. He plans to raise Harrowing not as a gentleman, but as an ignorant, degraded servant, a mirror image of his own past suffering. This is the ultimate act of a revolutionary usurper, to not just overthrow the old rulers, but to erase their legacy and corrupt their bloodline. He is ensuring that the House of Earnshaw will not just fall, but will be utterly and completely eradicated from within. From an artistic and philosophical perspective, this chapter is a profound commentary on the cyclical nature of violence and oppression. It suggests that a system built on cruelty, Hindley's treatment of Heathcliff, will inevitably be overthrown by an even greater cruelty, Heathcliff's treatment of Hindley and Harrowing. It is a bleak Hobbesian vision of a world where life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short, a war of all against all. The civilized world of Thrushcross Grange, with its quiet grief and its newborn hope, seems a world away, a fragile island of order in a savage chaos. But with Heathcliff now in full control of the Heights, and with his own son, Linton, about to be born in London, we know that the war is not over. The new tyrannical state of Wuthering Heights will inevitably seek to conquer and consume its peaceful neighbor. The birth of the second Catherine is not just a symbol of hope. She is the heiress of a kingdom that is now under a grave and imminent threat. The stage is set for the second half of the novel, a story not of passionate love, but of a cold, calculated war between two opposing states, a war for land, for legacy, and for the very souls of the next generation. Thank you for joining me in the Emotive Archive.